Welcome to the History and Heritage Podcast with me, Liam Blake. Join me as we uncover hidden stories and insights that shaped our world. From mysteries to legacies, join us on this journey through time. Have you ever thought to yourself, well, surely X, Y, or Z is illegal, or that can't be legal, or things like that? Well, laws form so much of human society that I think they qualify as something both history and heritage related. And since I'm the History and Heritage Podcast, here are a list of really, really weird laws from all over the world. What I'm going to do is go geographically, starting in North America. And of course, North America will mostly be the United States, which actually, to be honest, will be most of the podcast. In the state of Georgia, not the Eastern European country of Georgia, but the state of Georgia, USA. Why did the chickens cross the road is a question nobody will ever answer, because it's illegal in the city of Quitman to maintain public order. Now, I don't know the exact reason behind this law, but I imagine it was the joke came about and people tried it and caused an accident. If you live particularly in Ireland, but in other European countries I believe it is the same, where car horn honking is illegal between the hours of 11 and 7, I think it is in Ireland, that this law might interest you. In the state of California, whistling before 7 a.m, whistling, like, is illegal at the present time, which is, as with the car horn honking law, is intended to preserve the peace, is the reason that was given. Now, that was weird. These laws are just going to keep getting weirder and weirder. We go to Colorado, where sofas on porches are illegal right up to the present day. Design, which essentially is a bit of pride of place, because they said, no, we need our neighbourhoods looking nice and we don't want sofas on porches, particularly if people are going to be, drinking on the sofas on the porches, because that wouldn't look great for the neighbourhoods. But imagine you're just sitting out on your porch on a sofa and a guard comes up to you, you're going to jail, mister or missus. Now, to bring the history part of it, we go back to the 1940s, where pickles, the vegetable, often cucumbers, that have been soaked in the likes of brine or vinegar. Well, in the 1940s, every pickle in Connecticut had to go through a bounce test, where it would be dropped from a height, and if it did not bounce, it was therefore thought of as not good enough to be sold. Can you imagine a man, particularly in the 1940s, there would have all been kind of suits and ties and stuff, going to a height, dropping a pickle and saying, nope, that doesn't bounce. Not going to be allowed to sell that now. Very interestingly. So, we move then back to the state of Georgia. And this is a bit of a side note, but I don't know if you've ever seen the channels on YouTube that I find very interesting of people who live on boats. Now, they live in the wide open ocean, so the laws are different there. But in the state of Georgia, currently, living on boats is restricted for both environmental and zoning regulations, because it's hard when a boat is able to move. It's hard to say, oh, the house is here, or the house is, there or the other place, just because the house can move, because it's a boat. It's a boat. Staying in Georgia, this is a law I had heard about 20 years ago at this point, that is ridiculous, I think, but I suppose it probably made sense. But it's still up to the present day. Ice cream cones are illegal to be carried in back pockets. Somebody must have carried an ice cream cone in their back pocket and it got stolen, because this is down as a law to prevent theft. But oh my gosh, it's just so strange that, imagine having an ice cream cone in your back pocket. I'm presuming, it wasn't full, or if it was, they have a very messy back pocket when it was stolen. But anyways, Now going off the American mainland to the islands of Hawaii, where to this present day, placing coins in your ears is illegal. I would imagine that this was due to a case where somebody placed coins in their ears and they got stuck, and they went through a very lengthy lawsuit for not being told they could, I guess, and the surgery bills as well. But regardless, like, that just sounds so nuts. Then to Arizona. Have you ever seen, particularly at a sports game, where where the camera will flash to a player and the player will spit onto the pitch? Well, that's in Arizona. It's illegal for, as you would expect, public health and cleanliness rules. But again, like, the enforcement of these rules always kind of, or me imagining the enforcement of these rules always kind of makes me laugh, because imagine somebody spits in Arizona and you're like, oi, that's against the law, you're coming with me. Staying in Arizona, because Arizona has two more very strange laws. The second one is even stranger, but the first one is that bat signals are illegal as they create a public nuisance. Now, I would imagine that this is actually the signals as caused by the bat detector, or as heard by bat detector devices, because they can be very loud and can be a public nuisance. But like bat signals, so bats simply by existing and getting about the place are a public nuisance and are illegal. Anyways, that's Arizona for you, I guess. And finally, this one actually has its origins back in the 1920s. And back in the 1920s, donkeys were illegal to keep in bathtubs. The reason being, there was a flood back a couple of years previously, and in that flood, a donkey ended up in a bathtub and ended up breaking the bathtub. So they just said, yeah, you know what? Donkeys are not allowed to be in bathtubs. We're still in the States, and now we're going to a different one, and that one is Montana, where owning pet rats is illegal. This is actually something that has come to the fore in other countries, and to me, as a zoology graduate, makes a lot more sense, because it's to protect native species. Just to give you an idea, rats have caused 75 species extinctions completely over the past 500 years. So you don't want that being 76, and Montana are making sure it's not going to be 76 because they have banned pet rats. And again, so I know I laughed at the law in Georgia that said that ice cream was illegal if carried in the back pocket, but Idaho has a similar law where you need a permit to sell onions after dark. This law is still active, and again, the reason for it is apparently it prevents the theft of product. So again, I presume it was a big law case that was taken after somebody was selling onions in the dark and got robbed. And then obviously because it was dark, you couldn't see who robbed. We're going to the party town of the US, I guess, Las Vegas, where hula hooping, like, you know, swinging your body back and forth with a round hoop around it, is illegal currently, prioritizing public safety. So again, I presume that somebody was hula hooping, fell, or something like that, and did injury to themselves and sued. So they were just like, yep, no, hula hooping is illegal. And South Carolina, this is a mad one. South Carolina have banned the game of pinball as they find it too much like gambling. Parental supervision is needed in South Carolina for minors, so under 18s, that want to play pinball. And in Wisconsin, which this will make sense in a minute, but in Wisconsin, margarine was once illegal. This is simply because Wisconsin is a farming state. It is basically the farm of America. And they wanted to protect the dairy industry production. So they said, yeah, no, we're not doing margarine, thank you very much. No more margarine. Canada, on the other hand, only has two strange laws. So, have you ever gone up to the cashier in a shop and thought to yourself, I want to pay all of this in small coins? Well, if you're in Canada, your purchase is over $10, you can't do that. It's illegal to pay with coins for anything over $10. This is simply to avoid that kind of person, where there would then be a coin overload. And in the town of Petrolia, in Canada, again to maintain peace and quiet, yelling is actually banned within the town, and you can be fined for it, which is, to me, kind of crazy, but kind of acceptable or understandable, I guess. And that is the entirety of North America. Moving on to the small but mighty continent of Europe, and moving to a country which is not in the European Union anymore, the United Kingdom. Most of the sources I found, to be honest, in case you hadn't realised, most of the sources I found were either US or UK sources. So a lot of these laws are going to be either from the US or the UK, but there are a smattering of others. Anyways, United Kingdom. Have you ever gone into a pub and come out of it a little worse for wear? Well, since the 1870s, 1872 to be precise, being drunk in a pub is illegal. So if you get drunk inside of a pub in the United Kingdom, you can be arrested for it. Simply for being drunk, not even drunk and disorderly, but simply being drunk. There must have been a dust-caused epidemic or pandemic epidemic in the UK in the 1830s, because in 1839 a law was enacted that said beating rugs in the street was illegal, completely illegal. You weren't allowed to do it, and that law hasn't been struck off as of yet. Jumping from 1839 to 2015, which is a big jump, dog walkers were mandated by law to carry poo bags. Now, if you have ever been to particularly a dog show, but sometimes certain areas of the country of where I live, Ireland, or any countries, I'm sure you will have seen many places where, dog poo, gotta avoid that. Well, by law, you can't in the UK, but people probably still do. So you know the way taxis back in the times before cars were horse-drawn? Well, up to the 1830s, there were a few incidents where the horses were underfed, and therefore a law was enacted in 1831 that said that taxi drivers had to carry hay in the taxi. The law hasn't been struck off, but is very rarely used. Speaking of laws from olden days that are a bit strange, this is technically true still. Whales belong to the crown. This dates back from 1322, back from a time when whale oil and blubber was extremely expensive and sought after. So whales at the time belonged to the crown. So anytime a whale washed up, you had to say, Your Majesty, King, Queen, whichever it was, come here, we're after finding a whale and you own it, so will we bring it to the castle or just dismember it here? Obviously not in that accent because it was England. But speaking of the 1300s, which was a crazy time for English law, I guess, wearing armour in the Parliament was illegal. So this came about because many people did wear armour in Parliament at the time because it was just so politically fraught and tense, and it was their best protection they had from literally getting stabbed. There is another law where the two sides, so any two parties in the English Parliament have to stand at least 2 swords lengths away from each other. Which is crazy. A lunacy, you could say. Speaking of lunatics, from 1774 onwards, only one lunatic was allowed per residence, and is allowed. This was a measure from that time because it was actually done to tighten, I guess, the regulations around mental health institutions, because from that time onwards, people were getting more of an understanding of mental health institutions, and there were a lot of abuses going on in smaller institutions, particularly when rich people decided to just kind of lock up people with mental health issues. Since 1824, and post in a law that came after the Napoleonic Wars, when many people came back and were just living on the streets, being homeless became illegal because there was fears over resources. Now, essentially, this was because there were so many people at the time, as I said, that were homeless because of coming home after the war and not having a home to go to, that they just couldn't deal with it. So they said, "Yep, you know what? Being homeless is illegal." They did set up a few shelters and stuff, but yeah, homelessness was completely illegal. Speaking of the weird illegal stuff in the UK, 1986, to prevent the poaching of fish, handling salmon suspiciously was illegal. Now that, as I said, it was to prevent the poaching of fish, but it's just the way it's worded. Handling salmon suspiciously is illegal. It's just a really weird way of saying it. That was 1986. But to go back to 1403 again, Chester, Wales, there was a curfew. So you weren't allowed to go out after dark. And this was response to a past revolt a few years previously, where the locals had decided after dark to attack the rich and famous of the time and started a peasants' revolt. They decided to crack down by saying, "No, you're not allowed to go after dark. Thank you." Did you ever play a game where you knock on a door and run away? Or did you ever hear about that game? Well, if you did, in the UK, it's illegal. Because mostly due to safety concerns of A, the residents, B, people getting violent, and C, people falling as they were running away. Did you ever come across a law that was like so obvious you'd wonder why it had to be a law? Well, anyways, one of them. In the UK, since 1998, for obvious safety reasons, it has been illegal to detonate nuclear bombs. Yep, that's right. Nuclear bomb detonating is illegal in the UK since 1998. Who did thunk it, eh? This is a law that, looking now at it, I was making my notes, but I don't think I should have included this in the funny laws because it's not that funny, it's just normal. Watching a TV without a licence is illegal in the UK since 2003 because it funds public broadcasting resources. I could start a massive argument if I asked you what's your thought on this kind of TV licence law, but I'm not going to, even though I just did. Comment below. Mad thing, to finish off with two crazy laws, one of which is current and one of which is historic. In the UK, it is illegal to jump the queue, no matter the circumstance, and, as you would expect, this is intended to just maintain social order. And since 1894, it has been illegal to impersonate a police officer. Surely there's been certain plays and even school shows that have impersonated police officers in the UK since 1894, surely. Have they been arrested? Don't know. Well, anyway, I said that there would be a smattering of laws from other countries, and here you go. Italy, Milan. From the times of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it has been required to smile at all times, apart from funerals or visiting somebody in a hospital. Otherwise, it is required by law that you are smiling in Milan. And there's actually a law which a lot of people that I know would 100% agree with. Dogs must be walked daily in Turin in Italy for animal welfare reasons. But also, if you look at the science, I know this isn't history or heritage related, but side note here, if you look at the science, it's very much personal welfare too. And weirdly enough, in Venice, if you've ever been tempted to feed pigeons, it's technically now illegal for cleanliness reasons, because there was a myth going around that pigeons cause massive diseases, so that was one reason, and then the other reason is obviously pigeons poop a lot. And to give you one strange one from France and Scotland. In France, the town of Sarperinx, dying without a burial plot is illegal. Genuinely, but dying without a burial plot is actually illegal. I wonder how they'd enforce that. Like, if you die, does your dead body get put in prison for a number of years if you die without a burial plot? Or do you personally get a massive fine and then obviously the family have to pay it off? Or, like, what's the story, as they say? But that's Sarperinx in France for you. And in Scotland actually, if you listened to my previous podcast that is now defunct, the episode with Lucy Lapwing, you'll have heard me talk about the Right to Roam campaign in Scotland. And that extends as far as toilet access. Toilet access must be given when asked for, no matter where, private home, the whole thing. Down to basically just being hospitable, I guess. Now Asia. To finish off Asia and Oceania, 1 from Oceania, 4 from Asia. In Sri Lanka, it is illegal, up to the present day, for cultural sensitivity reasons, to take a selfie with a statue of Buddha. Which is kind of funny because there's so many pictures of Buddhas, obviously not from Sri Lanka, but from other places. In North Korea, this is a law I think everybody will know, but in North Korea, jeans have been banned from the 1920s due to their association with capitalism. Like, that's going very far, but anyways. And in Singapore you will know, if you know anything about Singapore, that it is very much big into cleanliness and its image, I guess. That is why chewing gum and flushing toilets are illegal. I mean, by flushing toilets, I mean loudly flushing toilets. Chewing gum has been illegal all the way since 1992. The flushing toilets was a bit more recent. And finally, have you ever forgotten somebody's birthday and been relieved when they don't give out to you for it? Well, if you're from Samoa, wanting to keep family harmony, it is actually illegal to forget your wife's birthday in Samoa. And on that note, thank you and goodbye. Hey, just before you go, please like this podcast, rate it 5 stars if you can, and then also comment if you can, something nice or any advice you have, and share this with anyone you think might be interested in either history or heritage. And it's not just Irish focus, it's international focus as well. So, thank you.